This is another example of Dutch naturalism, and in its subject, it has exactly that quality of ordinariness that we saw in the Jan van der Heyden. This is Albert Cuyp's Passage Boat, and it depicts a passenger service which ran probably hourly from Dordrecht to Rotterdam. And Cuyp shows the sailing boat probably just drifting into its mooring here. And he's got another similar boat in the background, almost to suggest that this is just one of a succession of passenger boats which will moor here and then will set off again. It's a very, very ordinary scene. It's like depicting the number 3 bus. And in that sense, it's very similar. Also in its viewpoint, it has exactly that character that the Jan van der Heyden had, which is that we seem to be actually standing in the scene, experiencing it as we would if we were an ordinary spectator. We're at a low level. We can't see over the top of the boat. We see the horizon below the line of the boat. It's not as if we have some kind of bird's eye perspective. We have the perspective of a person standing on the shore waiting for this boat to arrive. So in that sense, there's a very strong similarity. However, there start to become a number of differences. Firstly, this is a painting conceived on a much, much larger scale, which suggests that it's more ambitious in its scope and in its meaning. And arising out of that scale, it's painted in a much more painterly and free way, so that the actual application of the paint becomes part of the expressive character of the painting. And you see that particularly in the clouds, which are where you see the pattern of the brush strokes that makes the clouds, and in the reflections, where Cuyp has almost deliberately made a kind of almost illegible jumble of colours and shapes to try and evoke the character of a reflection, which sort of muddles up our view of the world and scrambles it in a rather interesting way. So in that execution it's different, but perhaps also, more important, there may be some suggestion that there is a deeper significance in the scene that we're looking at. And this would be very characteristic of Dutch poetry at the time, which would suggest that if you are wandering from your city gate in your surroundings, as you enjoy the landscape around you, things may provoke in you more profound thoughts than the actual motif might seem to warrant. And I think in this case, the idea of a ship is always a very potent metaphor, because it's something which suggests salvation. A ship carries people from danger to safety. And particularly, if a ship is seen against the light in this way, if it's almost clothed or haloed in light, it suggests that it's a ship which has some quality of salvation about it. And that salvation might have 2 elements to it. One, it might be the political salvation of the Dutch Republic. The Dutch had fought for their independence from Spain for 80 years, and at some time before this was painted, probably within a decade of this being painted, they had gained their independence and had been officially recognized. That was in 1648. So this might, in the view, the idea of its original beholders, this ship might suggest the ship of state, the Dutch Republic, which had sailed to safety. Just as you can imagine if you painted a very, very ordinary scene in London in the late 1940s, a depiction of an ordinary bus going about its daily business would have a much greater moral and emotional significance than a depiction of an ordinary bus would have if you painted it today. That would be the idea. But the other element in this painting, which is extremely suggestive, lies in the pattern of the clouds, which are so sort of golden and have so much an intimation of human forms about them that you start to think that there might be angels hovering around them, which would be a common enough thing in art at this date. And the way in which that's called sprit pole and the mast of this ship make a cross is, I'm sure, not accidental. And to a viewer of the 17th century, to have a painting of this kind with a cross so prominently shown, I think would immediately provoke a symbolic reading. And in that case, the boat would start to symbolize the boat of salvation, which would carry the individual soul to salvation. In other words, the role of Christ in, in all our salvations, not just in the salvation of the Dutch Republic.